Hey Scrappy Peeps, Suzanna here today to share with you my layout based on this sketch. This is the November 2017 Cocoa Daisy sketch, and this is the layout that I created based on my own sketch. So I have the memory keeping 12 by 12 kit as well as the pocket kit, and I use elements from both parts of the kit in order to create this layout. So the sketch calls for a diagonal corner, and it has a border to it. So I've used this plaid, which is a Cocoa Daisy exclusive, and I decided I wanted to back it on some black paper just to give a little bit more definition to the black that's in the plaid and kind of make that pop a little bit. In the process of cutting the paper, it felt like something wasn't true, that it wasn't truly 12 by 12, so that's why I was just running it along the grid on my mat to check. So the plaid was going to be my main diagonal, and then I wanted something as a border, and I struggled to find something that would work as a border and be visible. I really liked this snowflake and actually started to think about cutting it, but realized that you would lose the definition of the snowflake, and then that sort of made the snowflake obsolete, and I could change that up and use that for something else. So I knew I wanted the plaid on the white, and that the white would be my main background. So I cut that down. I had to cut the selvage strip off first and then trim down to the same size as the background piece that I had already cut for the plaid, and just stuck the plaid on top of that. And that was the main foundation of my page. I just had to find something that was going to be the border to that plaid strip there. So I tried that green selvage strip and I liked it. It's interesting to me how what you can see while you're scrapping versus what you see when you're watching the process video. There are things that, were I to see it on video, I may have chosen to do differently, because I actually kind of liked that green strip, and it worked in the same angle as the greens that were already on there. So I found this piece of paper that looks like snow, the red, and I thought falling snow that would be good, but I really wanted a scallop border. I thought that by having the scallop, it was going to soften the density of that plaid. So I trimmed down my picture first, and in lieu of knowing what to do with that, I decided to play with this picture cluster. This picture is of the kids waiting to go downstairs and see what Santa brought them on Christmas morning. And you can see I flipped the paper a couple of times, because though the sketch called for that diagonal to be from top left down to bottom right, I thought maybe it might look better going another way. And you can see I still am not sure which way I actually want to do this. So what I did there was I had a glassine bag that some Cocoa Daisy goodies came in, and I tucked the packaging from one of the, actually from these poinsettias, and I used that as the spot for journaling in the glassine bag. And the yellow was very, very bright in this poinsettia, and I have no other yellow on the layout, so I cut those off. They bothered me, and so I got rid of them. Simple as that. And I wanted layers around the glassine bag in the photo, but they needed to be layers that stood out against that plaid as well as the white. That I tried there is actually a file that Arlie had as a free download, and it still is a free download off of her site, and I printed it on vellum, but it's more of a pinky red, and these are sort of more true red, so that wasn't going to work. So I found my punch, and it gave the scallops that I wanted, and in a minute you're going to feel like Bigfoot is walking across your screen as I punch this out. And I found the scallop that I liked, and so this is another one of those situations where had I seen it from up top, I would have stuck with it. But as I was looking at it from my scrappy perspective, that wasn't going to work. And so here's Bigfoot again, stomping his way across the screen. I punched the same scalloped border. It's sort of a lacy scallop border in white. And so I ended up doing tone on tone. And then I backed this white with that red so that you actually lose a little bit of the scallop, but it redefines it in a different way. I actually liked that with the hint of green in it too, but again, my perspective as I was standing at the table was very different than it is overlooking it from this process video here. So this is ultimately what I go with, that red behind it, and then I just have to trim off the corners there. So I adhere that down, and just use that little teeny bit of red to emphasize that white so that it takes away the tone on tone from it really. But it integrates that white into the layout much better and gives a much clearer defined border. So I'll just lift it off a little bit, flip it over and trim those right angles. And then I'll repeat the same thing for the bottom half, and it didn't need to go all the way across and be contiguous because I have that picture of the kids there. And again, I'll do the same thing. I'll adhere it down, lift it off just a little bit, and make a right angle out of that bottom corner there. So there is the completed foundation of those back of the page, and that is what the sketch calls for there. So I have this picture, and I need to figure out where this poinsettia is going to go. I really liked it beside the picture, but the problem was that it was a little heavy with the heaviness of that plaid. So I decided to cut out one of these snowflakes as a topper, sort of photo corner, and that was going to provide a resting place for the poinsettia to sit, which distributes the weight of the layout a little bit better. I liked the snowflake just by itself too, but I thought that the poinsettia was a great way of using something else that was in the kit, and also it did add a little bit more distribution to the weight. So the card that I had originally had to the left side of the picture, I decided to pull out to the right side of the picture because it gives a little bit more visibility of that journal card through the vellum. But then I feel like I need a little bit more of white, there we go, to the left, and that makes the picture pop off that plaid a little bit more. So I have the foundation of some borders, but I still want a little bit more behind that photo. And I do like that card there, but the problem with that is that the card is, I'm showing more of the 6 inch tall, and I wanted something that was longer than that card was, so that wasn't going to work. I love this snowflake sticker, and I thought that maybe the snowflake on top of the snowflake would look good, but I didn't like that. And I liked this sticker, and it says peace, love, and joy, and the blue that's in the plaid, it's a very subtle blue, is the same blue that is in that sticker, which sort of ties those together for me nicely. So I'm going to adhere these layers, commit to them, and I was thinking that that might make a nice background, and I really like that green. But I get distracted because I realize that I want to raise the picture up and give a little bit more dimension and pop it off the background. So I just use a little bit of fun foam, and I forget that I have that sticker embellishment there, so I need to add just a little bit behind the sticker to pop that off. There we go. So those are the layers. There's that little bit of extra that I add in there. I know I actually wasn't quite enough. So adhere that down to the glassine bag with the packaging for my journaling. And it still says Cocoa Daisy down the bottom, but I'm not worried about it because you don't see it until you take the tag out, and I think you get so distracted by the journaling that you don't realize that it says Cocoa Daisy. So the kit came with these lovely gold stars, and there are a plethora of them. There is no shortage of stars, and so I wanted to incorporate those in as well. They had a very Christmas feel to me of this Christmas morning, but I wanted to put a little bit more color to that stark white background. So I decided to do the packaging technique. I have this mist from Shimmers, and I like to cut it down with water. And for some reason I had done this on, this is actually the backing of a Xyron, a large Xyron sticker maker, but it doesn't smush the ink as well as the packaging technique, so I put it onto another piece of packaging. Now, when I did this ended up being a lot more pink than the true red that is in the photo. So I got my Mr. Huey's from a long time ago, and it wouldn't spray because I haven't used it in quite some time. So I just sort of dabbed a little bit onto the, see how I tried to spray it and it wouldn't come out. So I dabbed, you can see I kind of shook a little bit on, watered that down as well, and then picked up the color from my packaging. So it's a little slightly different packaging technique, but I liked the truer red in the color there and just added a little more knowing where that picture was going to go. And it dries very quickly. I did not use gesso, which makes it dry even faster. And because I'd already adhered the white cardstock down to the black as the backing, it did not warp. So my kids needed me, and I decided to die cut some elements that I cut out of some cardstock. These are just different greens that coordinate with the greens that are in the pattern paper. They do not come with the kit. They were cardstock that I had pulled out of my stash, and I thought that it looked good up top and sort of added a little, it softened that corner, which went nicely with that mixed media that I had put in there. I'd also cut out of that green 6x6 piece that comes in the pocket kit some holly leaves, but it's very hard to see them, and I didn't want even more texture to the layout. So now I'm using the chipboard thickers that come with the kit and putting my title, which is just waiting. But I want a little bit more green on the as a layer, and so knowing that those flowers weren't, or the holly wasn't going to work, I ripped that edge, and I really liked how the green provided some contrast to the mixed media as well as to those red letters that I had there. So I stick my picture down, put that little thin green strip there for both added texture and some color, and then lay my letters down. Now I knew as I started to lay them, you can see I put the I below, and then I realized that that is not going to fit weighting going all the way down. So I double up the A and the I and the I and the N, which allows me to fit the whole title without going down into the border where you would definitely not see the red on red. So there is waiting. So I did not quite put the title as I called for the title in the sketch, which was underneath the picture. I also changed the direction of the picture in order to suit the picture that I had wanted to use for this particular sketch, and it worked out well for me. So you can see how you can adapt sketches and make them work for you. I put that little chipboard heart to the left, and I had some stickers and things that I thought would look fun, but ultimately I leave them all behind because there's a lot going on in this layout with that plaid and the mixed media and then that poinsettia in the corner. So I stop messing around with all of those, clean up the stars that I spilt over, and I remember that I had taken the yellow off of that poinsettia and I wanted the center of the poinsettia, so I used some of these enamel dots that come with the kit. They're actually not really enamel, gem dots, and then I used some pop dots to adhere. They're actually glue dots, not pop dots, to adhere these stars down. This dots are nice and big, so there's the close-up of those little stars there. And that, my friends, is it. We would love to see you play along if you are inspired by this sketch. Enjoy the close-ups, and thanks for joining me today. Take care.